Hey guys, I'm Dwayne Estes, Executive Director of the Southeastern Grasslands Initiative. I'm coming to you live here today from Lebanon, Tennessee, just about 30 miles east of Nashville. And the start of this talk is labeled Architecture in Southeastern Grasslands. Who would ever think that there are clues to southern grasslands just in the architecture of some of our oldest towns in places like here in Tennessee? This town of Lebanon was established in about 1801, 1802, and I'll give you just a little bit more details about that. Number one, when most people think about southern cities or southern towns, you think about these old log cabins, like this cabin here, which is the old homestead of Neddy Jacobs, who was one of the earlier citizens or settlers of this Lebanon region. And but obviously, this requires having wood. It requires, having trees in the nearby vicinity to build log cabins. In so many areas across the Southeast, we have an abundance of wood, right? And the southern landscape is known for its timber resources. If you're in the Appalachian region, you've got tulip poplar trees and American chestnut trees historically that a lot of structures are built out of. We know that wood was used heavily, like white oak, for making baskets and chairs and all kinds of other things. But what we often don't think about is how there can be clues, architectural clues, to the presence of historic grasslands. In about 1817, General Jeremiah Slade was coming over from North Carolina. He lived in the central North Carolina region around Chapel Hill, Raleigh-Durham, and was interested in buying some land here in central Tennessee. So he made this very long journey across the Blue Ridge Mountains in 1817, and he describes his journey of going through southern Virginia, of coming down through the great valley of East Tennessee to where Knoxville is, coming over the Cumberland Plateau. And then as he approached what is now the present-day town of Lebanon, he said, the folks in Lebanon have basically built a new courthouse. And he said, because of the absence of trees, they resorted to having to build that courthouse out of locally crafted, locally made bricks. And so that is one clue, the fact that that courthouse at that early date was entirely constructed from brick, stood out to General Jeremiah Slade as being very noteworthy. And he said that it was specifically built out of brick because of the absence of trees in the vicinity of Lebanon. Now, some people might say, well, obviously that means that by that point in time, the white settlers in this region had already deforested this landscape. That's not practical. When you stop to consider that the very first white settlers in this region didn't really even come until 1779. There were a few hunters that came prior to that back into the 1760s. But they were not coming here prior to 1779 with the intent for creating permanent settlements. But even those who came in 1779, 1780 settled in Nashville, 30 miles to the west. And all they had were basically simple forts. Yes, they felled some trees, they girdled trees, have the capacity until well into the 1800s to have things like sawmills and to do widespread timber harvesting and clearing, and certainly not anything from an economic standpoint of actually selling those timber resources on the market. It would be, I think, about 1840 when the first sawmills would actually pop up. So it raises some really important and fascinating questions about using certain clues that many people might not ordinarily think about to help infer where grasslands were on the landscape. So anyways, I'm just looking here at the sign that says something about the history of the logs used in this cabin. Let me see if there's any kind of neat clues. It says the original site of this log cabin was in Leeville, Tennessee, and the old Nashville, Lebanon stage route. It was built in 1833 by John Kelly, a Methodist minister. He goes on to just talk about basically sort of the origins of the timbers that are used in this. So anyways, over and out, I love the intersection of history with biodiversity and conservation, and I love the fact that the story is way more complicated than we ever have given credit to. And I was really excited last week. I had a chance to meet with several of the historians at Mount Vernon, George Washington's estate, with the sole purpose of talking about how we can marry together the study of American history with the study of conservation and biodiversity and come together for a really full picture of the grasslands of the southeastern United States. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is something that's super important to the Southeastern Grasslands Initiative. It's not just about biodiversity conservation, it's about getting the story of American history right. And to do that, we've got to dig back deep into archives and structures. There's a lot of untapped information that is sort of waiting to still be brought to light. So hope y'all have a good day. Over and out from Lebanon, Tennessee. Have a good day.